So what about these ghosts? Why is it in Star Wars these guys show up with fully clothed with, whatever outfit fits them perfectly, well tailored? They should be butt naked.
Well, I don't know if they're butt naked, but like Yoda died in his outfit, his robe. Obi-Wan died in his robe, but Anakin didn't die in his robe, right? So what do these ghosts have, like a wardrobe they can pick from of what they want to wear when they appear?
There must be a nice tailor in whatever space heaven. Where are they at?
Wherever they're at. Where are they at, actually?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got a really good tailor in wherever they're at.
I think we're on.
We are on.
Here we go.
Hey everybody, this is Dane.
This is JR.
And we are
the Cult Lords.
We're coming to you from our cult compound deep in the jungles of South America. I recommend to eat the food, but don't drink the Kool-Aid. So for the next 30 to 40 minutes, we want to release your mind and talk a little bit about music and pop culture, whiskey, cigars, and our favorite, movies. But to understand why we started this channel, it's important to understand the history of our friendship. Dane, do you want to tell them how long we've known each other?
Over 15 years. We met at a former job and struck it off ever since then, really talking about movies.
That's right. It's interesting that when we started the job, we went out to lunch a couple times talking about work, but we found out that we both share the same love, and that is cinema. Dane, tell them your story about how you came to love cinema.
So, as a young kid, I was always really emotionally tied into the movies. It was one of those few times where you get to go off in another, universe, get out of the neighborhood. And where that led to, even though I didn't major in it and didn't do anything with cinema growing up, I ended up taking some technical screenwriting classes later and just learned all the aspects of screenwriting and how movies are broken down. And it really has helped digest movies at a whole nother level. And what about you? What do you, how did you get into this whole?
Well, like you, loved cinema as a young kid. My parents took me to a lot of movies. In the early 70s, I was seeing stuff like Sinbad, Jaws, Star Wars, and just love movies.
13 times.
13 times out of theater, I saw Star Wars.
Did not see it in a movie theater. Didn't see it until one of my friends had it on a VHS tape. So
still unbelievable.
Lost out.
Unbelievable. But, when I went to college, as many college students do, I changed my major a couple of times, and then I thought, what if I worked in the movies? What if I worked behind the scenes? So I started taking movie courses, and I went to Missouri State, where I got to study under Professor David Daly. This guy, he was a film critic for like US Today, Springfield News Leader, NBC, but he was also professor of movies. So I took 3 film courses under him, understanding film, the history of film, and then my favorite, an Alfred Hitchcock course. In fact, when Dana, when you're in college and you buy all your textbooks, and then at the end of the semester you go and you sell them back for half the cost.
Quarter of the cost.
Yeah. The one textbook I decided to keep in my entire college career was that Alfred Hitchcock book, because that course changed the way I totally watched movies. So of course, when Dane and I connected at our company and we started talking films, we decided, hey, let's start going out and watching movies together.
Yeah.
And so how did we create a formula of watching movies, Dan? What were we doing?
So what we were doing is going to our favorite liquor joint, basically, watering hole, in the vicinity of a movie theater, go there, have some great charcuterie, have some Manhattans, some other themed drinks that went with the movie, watched the movie, came back and digested the whole thing, took it apart, what we liked, didn't like, and this was the inspiration for the show.
And then what happened? COVID. So we did that for over 10 years. Every couple months, we'd go see a movie, have drinks before, see the movie, go back to the bar, dissect the movie together over drinks, and then COVID happened. And all the movie houses shut down. Our favorite watering hole with the charcuterie boards completely closed.
Yeah.
We're still missing that place, trust me. And so we haven't seen a movie in the theater together for almost 2 years now.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So what happened to us though, Dane? Just like most of America, we stayed home and we watched streaming channels like Netflix, YouTube, Disney Plus, Prime, Hulu. But you know what? Before
And
COVID, yeah. Well, I'm not so much on the Apple, but
Ted Lasso. That's Apple Plus.
Still haven't seen Ted Lasso. I hear it's good.
Whole nother program.
So I never watched YouTube that much before COVID, but I found myself watching YouTube almost every night. And I started following channels that I really loved. There were movie review channels and reaction channels, things like Real Rejects and Blind Wave Media, Tyrone Magnus, Awkward Ashley. These were our YouTube channels I started following, and I was like, wow, these guys are out there just watching movies, reacting to it.
You turned me on to all these guys.
I did, yeah.
I wasn't really watching any YouTube there, the usual.
So suddenly we were reacting to other people reacting to movies, and about a year ago, we got together finally and said, hey, maybe we can take the formula we've done for years by having a drink, seeing a movie, and breaking it down and do it in front of the camera, and maybe other people would enjoy.
Let's do this!
Maybe other people enjoy how we saw movies. So that is the impetus of the Cult Lords. We got some exciting things to talk about. But first, as we always do, we like to pour ourselves a drink. So Dane, what are we having today?
We are having this fabulous beverage, Maker's Mark 101 proof.
Legally, bourbon must have a minimum of 51% corn on its mash bill and be made in America. The discerning wolf, however, may enjoy this limited edition Maker's Mark 101 over Wild Turkey 101 since it's wheated. Like Pappy Van Winkle, the distiller replaced the traditional rye with red winter wheat for a softer, sweeter profile.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is yummy. Cheers.
Cheers.
Perfect. Biting. Perfect for this movie, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely raw cask strength 101, as mentioned. It, even with some ice and some water in it, it's not as sweet as I was expecting.
I kind of taste a little butterscotch in there.
Yeah, I could see that. I could get some vanilla notes in there. There's supposedly some like orange peel at the beginning. I couldn't find that one. But, one of the things I really love doing is having, a chocolate, a sweet, a fruit, and a vegetable with every bourbon just to kind of see which one brings out the different flavors. So in this case, it was bitter chocolate, an apple, and a yellow pepper for any of you salad fans. Ironically, the yellow pepper was probably the best because it's got so much liquid in it. It works well with bringing out the flavors of the actual whiskey. So what do you think?
I just drink what they pour me. Bell peppers and dark chocolate.
Right.
I don't do that. But who knows? It tastes good or it doesn't taste good.
It's a great way to pull out other tastes in the drink. It works with wine too, by the way. But
so
while this is tasty and a spicy Manhattan, I don't think I would like this straight.
Like we're drinking it right now with a little ice.
It's a little too, you can't just have it by itself. But what I'm giving this one is more of a grade of 7.
I'm going to give it a 6.8. I've definitely tasted much smoother whiskey. So.
Yes, the water is supposed to subdue the burn, but in this case, it's not really happening too much.
No. But hey, you know what? It'll do the job to watch a movie and break it down, right?
I know.
All right, let's do it. So Dane, it is Halloween, and the movie we are going to review today is The Wolf of Snow Hollow. This is actually out of my Blu-ray collection, like most of these movies that we review will be. I have about 5,000 Blu-rays and DVDs. I continue to buy, what comes out. So this was released last year. I picked it up, and I've been waiting for us to watch this. And by the way, just to let everybody know, we are going to give this away to one of our 2 viewers who watches this video. So
there's a 50-50 chance, you guys.
50-50 chance for you 2 to win a copy of this. We're going to give a brand new copy of this away. Stay tuned for the end of our review, and we'll tell you how one of you 2 can win this, okay? So, with it being Halloween, everybody loves to watch scary movies. And I don't know if you saw this recently on Forbes, but they actually put out...
Forbes the magazine?
Forbes the magazine. And I wonder why Forbes would get into this subject, but they did a story on what is the scariest movie ever using the scientific method. So what they did was they went out, and let me read this to you. They went out and they got 50 people and subjected them to 35 of the scariest movies of all time. 120 hours of watching scary movies. Now, to me, that's my kind of job. What about you?
That would be awesome. To be paid to watch movies all the time, and then give your feedback on every single movie.
Well, you know what?
They're Clockwork Orange. You just sit there with your eyes up, with toothpicks.
If I was doing a 120-hour marathon, I would need to prop my eyes open. But, they actually didn't really want their feedback of the movie. They wanted their biorhythms. What they did was they hooked up all these 50 people to a bunch of monitors, and they measured their resting heart rate, their heart rate during the movie, their highest spike during the movie of how many beats per minute they were doing, and their breath rate. So they did 35 of the scariest movies, and guess what came out as the scariest movie scientifically?
Scientifically, Jaws?
No. You know what? They actually didn't have Jaws in this. They should have done that. But the highest rated scariest movie was Sinister. Have you seen Sinister?
No, I never even heard of it.
So I have seen Sinister, and it is pretty scary. But there's an interesting trend if you look at the top 10 here. So Sinister was number 1. And so what they noticed was that the average resting beat per minute was 65 beats per minute. During the movie, 86 beats per minute. And the highest spike was 131 beats per minute in the movie. So, a lot of jump scares.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff like that. Number 2 was Insidious. Number 3, The Conjuring. Number 4, Hereditary. 5, Paranormal Activity. 6, It Follows, which, by the way, is on a future playlist that we're going to review. It Follows. 7, The Conjuring 2. 8, The Babadook. Don't know that one. 9, The Descent. And number 10, The Visit. M. Night Shyamalan's movie.
So these are all surprising because they're all relatively recent
They're
movies.
all relative. So you know what?
Of all those movies, I've only seen The Descent.
So you didn't see Paranormal Activity?
No.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So when we look at more classic movies that we would think is scary, they do fall on this list at a lower rate. So, at number 11 is The Ring, 12, A Quiet Place. But now you get to 13, A Nightmare on Elm Street. 14, Halloween. 15, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
A classic.
16, 28 Days Later. 17, this surprised me. The Exorcist, all the way down at number 17.
That is surprising.
Right?
Yeah.
So M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit, which I've seen, and it's a little freaky, but it's not that scary. That averaged more than The Exorcist? That surprises me.
Who are these people they interviewed or hooked up to the mechanics?
I know.
It seems strange that Exorcist would be so low.
Let me ask you this. Do you think beats per minute should be the qualifier of what's the scariest movie?
Well, so that's a great point because, scientifically, if that's the only way to register that it's, what makes a great scary movie, well then, yeah, I guess that's the only way to do it scientifically because I wouldn't agree that most of those movies were great movies, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's missing out
Well,
there.
number 2 is Insidious, and I have to say that's
Is it a good movie? Okay,
good
I haven't
movie.
seen it.
But let me tell you this. To me, what movies are keeping you up at night in bed? That's how you should define this. Not beats per minute just because I go, ha! And scare you on a jump scare, right? Is that really technically? Yes, exactly. Your beats per minute just went up. And just to finish out the top 35, just some significant movies. At number 24 was Alien. 25, The Thing. 26, Poltergeist. 28 was Friday the 13th. Blah, 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 blah.
This list seems like it's in the reverse order for some reason.
I know. 32, The Omen. 33, The Shining. 34 was Get Out. So, yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see this list. But, I think, in looking at this list, I think we should discuss for us what are our top scariest movies of all time. So we're going to introduce a new segment on the Cult Lords. Of course, we're going to introduce a new segment. It's episode 1, right?
It is new.
It is new.
Especially to us.
It's going to become a regular segment, and that is our Cult Lords top 8 list.
The Infinity 8 list.
And you're probably asking, top 8 list? Why top 8? You know why top 8? You know why we're doing top 8? Because everybody does a top 10 list, right? That's so blasé. Everybody does that. And 5, that just wasn't enough. So in the middle, we're going to do top 8.
Just right.
Just right. Cult Lords top 8 list, okay? So for this show, it's going to be the top 8 scariest movies. And we're going to start at number 8 and work our way to the top. So, Dane, what is your number 8 scariest movie of all time?
Number 8, Jaws.
Jaws. That is a scary movie.
How many times in that movie you're watching it and you have no idea what's coming, but you know it's coming?
That is a movie I have to watch every few years just because it is so darn good. It is just a great movie. So that's your number 8. I'll match you with my number 8. And this might surprise people, but from 1983, did you ever see Twilight Zone, the movie?
No, never saw it.
Okay, did you ever see the Twilight Zone episode where William Shatner sees something out on the wing of the plane?
It's called something like Flyer on the Wing or something like that.
Something like that.
Yep.
They actually did a remake in this movie, and John Lithgow sees something.
Oh,
But you know what? It's not about that. It's about the first 3 minutes of the movie. If you know the first 3 minutes of that movie, you know why this movie is scary. That kept me up at night.
Especially for a susceptible 12-year-old.
Oh, I was 12. I saw that at the theater. So number 7. What's your number 7?
I actually have The Descent as number 7.
Oh, well, you know what?
So that was in the top 10.
That was number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9 on the Forbes list.
It was claustrophobic, a lot of cave spelunking, so great scenes, but you don't know what's in the dark.
It's a good movie. And I will say this, Descent did not make my top 8, but I do like that movie. Number 7 for me would be Friday the 13th because watching this once again as a preteen, I don't think I saw this at the theater, but we had HBO, and when it came out, I had a little portable black and white TV in my room, and when my mom and dad thought I was asleep, I would turn that thing on, and I would turn the sound on, put my ear on, and then that would come, and they would kill the 2 teenagers having sex, and
I'm like looking out
and
the
I'm
window.
watching this, like freaking out, and then having a hard time going to bed. So that's my number 7. What's your number 6, Dane?
American Werewolf in London.
Oh,
Thematic, obviously.
thematic. We're reviewing a werewolf movie today.
The mechanics in that, because there's no CGI at that time.
No, it was all
did some
mechanical.
amazing work, and it's so creepy seeing all those body parts expand out and everything.
I loved
into a
it.
wolf.
I loved it when the face starts bubbling, back and forth as his snout grows out, his fingers elongate. Great movie. Great movie. I
What about
will say, that's not in my top 8.
I detect a theme on here.
So I have The Exorcist as my top as number 6 because I don't think I watched this until I was like a young adult, but I remember the commercials of this coming on as a kid when they were going to play it for the first time on like CBS, and the shadow of the priest at the doorway would come on, and I would go running out of the room.
They must have cut so much of that out on the TV, right?
I don't know. I didn't watch it. But I was scared of the commercial. So I was scared too when I actually saw it.
Probably got more out of the Saturday Night Live one with Richard Pryor. Remember that?
Yeah. All right, number 5. What is your number 5?
Number 5 for me is The Thing.
The Thing.
John Carpenter. Not the original. The next one that was done in the 78. That one itself.
I think it's the early 80s. But
that one is like so desolate, and they're middle of nowhere. They're going to be helpless, obviously, and then that creature just loves to take over other creatures. And again, no CGI, all mechanics.
Kurt Russell, great movie.
Kurt Russell.
Wow. Our lists are very different.
Kurt Russell.
Thing is not in my top 8. I love that movie, and it was in this number 25 on the Forbes list. But I have at number 5, Insidious. So I just mentioned to you, that was Forbes number 2. If you haven't seen Insidious, this is a very well-written movie, and there are some freaky parts to it. They have a whole world around it with Insidious 2, and the nun, I think, comes into this world.
But it's the nun. Okay.
It's a really good movie. So now we're up to number 4. What is your number 4?
Number 4 for me is The Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
So what freaked me about that one is it really supposedly happened. I mean, just knowing that when you come into that movie and you see, again, no CGI, just all special mechanics and everything. But I mean, when the head starts spinning, that looks real.
Did you know when that movie came out, and I think it was 1974, they had people throwing up in the aisles, people leaving the movie. There had never been a movie like The Exorcist ever before, and it freaked people out. People were they said that the rise in going back to church went up because of The Exorcist, because people were so freaked out.
I could see that happening.
Great movie. My number 4, I'm just curious, Dana, have you ever seen The Ring?
Yes.
Okay.
Great movie.
So it is based off a Japanese movie called Ringu, which I've also seen, but I do like the American version, The Ring, and it's Naomi Watts in that, and that was freaky. There's the big payoff scene.
Especially the payoff scene.
The payoff scene is just amazing.
You want to have people crapping in their pants in the movie theater, that's the payoff.
That's the payoff. That was a great movie. So now it takes us to number 3. What is your 3rd scariest movie?
Well, I mean, this one is more, remember I said scary, not from like jump out of your seat stuff, but more just scary from a good movie, Fright Night. Not scary.
You know what?
Really good movie.
Okay, look. Fright Night, I'm going to say right now, is not in my top 8.
Again, I detect the theme here.
But Fright Night is one of my all-time favorite vampire movies. It's one of my all-time favorite 80s movies. I saw this in the theater. It was amazing. I love Fright Night. I could go on all day about Fright Night. It's just so good. So my number 3... I saw once again in the theater as a 12-year-old boy. My parents took me. This wasn't rated R, though. This was PG at the time. And that is Poltergeist.
Oh.
So, little girl gets stuck in the TV. They've got to go. The thing that freaked me out as a kid. Do you remember the movie Poltergeist?
Yeah.
Do you remember when the little boy is looking outside and the tree reaches into the window, grabs him through the window, and eats him like, the little...
Right.
Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
So I had a tree outside my window just like everybody else. And when it would rain and thunder and lightning, I'd see that tree and think about Poltergeist.
Is it scratching on your window?
Oh,
JR, where are you?
That movie scared me.
That was more worrying.
And I've featured on my Facebook page the clown that likes to pull the kid under the bed. So very scary. Number 2. We're at number 2 already. What is number 2 for you?
So, number 2 for me is definitely one that is super scary on its own, and definitely it's more like things coming out of the dark. It's called The Fog.
Oh, I know The Fog. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really good. So I'm going to go with my number 2. And we've talked about John Carpenter already with The Thing. Have you seen In the Mouth of Madness?
No.
Oh,
Don't know anything
you know
about
Sam Neill, the actor in Jurassic Park?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so he is a writer like Stephen King. And he writes these horror books, and suddenly things start happening in real life that are matching up to his horror books, right? Now, this movie came out in the early 90s, and I think what happened was I came home from college one weekend and was like staying at my parents' house, and they went out one night, and my brothers were gone, so I'm alone in the house in the basement, and I'm watching In the Mouth of Madness. And this thing started freaking me out. Every little sound in the house I was like turning around, like, what is that? What's going on? That movie scared the crap out of me, In the Mouth of Madness. So I love it. Watch it if you haven't seen it. So now we come up to number 1. What is, for you, the scariest movie that you've ever seen in your life?
So again, I'm a big lover of sci-fi, but this one is claustrophobic, slathering creature. You only see it once in a while. It's Alien.
Oh, I thought you were
first Alien.
I thought you were going to say Gremlins, but
No, I'm not going to say Gremlins. Sorry.
no,
Alien.
Aliens. Okay.
That movie, because you never see the creature really till the very end after he's, or she, I don't know what the creature is, taking everybody apart. And all the lead up and everything where they,
Yeah. Unfortunately for me, I saw Aliens before I saw Alien.
Yeah.
And
Totally different movie.
yeah, totally different, but I've watched Alien many times, and I could see how this would be scary. So that's your scariest movie. Not in my top 8, Dana. It's not in my top 8. But you know what? That did come in the Forbes list at 24.
I told you, it's reverse the list.
All right. So for me, the number 1 scariest movie of my lifetime, for me, it is Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy Krueger. So I went and saw this at the theater. And how we did this was, I don't know if you ever did this as a teenager, some friends of mine went on a Saturday afternoon matinee to go see one movie because it was rated R, and then when people weren't looking, we snuck over and watched Nightmare on Elm Street, and we watched that, and of course as teenagers we're all like ha 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 laughing. Then you go home and you have to lay in bed by yourself in the dark, and you're thinking about Freddy Krueger entering your nightmares. That freaked me out as a 12, 13-year-old.
Freddy's coming to get you.
Oh, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. To me, that is the scariest movie for me all time. And that came in at the Forbes list at number 13.
Number 13.
Lucky 13.
Well, probably there was a lot of he jumped out at people, right?
But the whole thing of he can appear in your dreams.
Yeah.
And when you were asleep, he's in the bathtub with you. He's over your bed.
It's true. That guy has an amazing amount of ability to get everywhere.
Yeah, and you know what? I remember the scene where he cuts off his fingers, and you see the green slime coming out. And, I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. You know what I mean? Yeah. All those things just freaked me out. So, so those are our scariest movies, and you know what we would love to do? We'd love to see what your scariest movies are of all time.
So post in the comments section.
In your comments, what are your top 8 scariest movies of all time? I want to see what it is. I want to see if there's anything I've never seen before that I need to go see, because it's in your top 8 list. So if you would post in the comments your scariest movies of all time, we would greatly appreciate that. All right, Dana. It is now time for our review of The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Yes, The Wolf of Snow Hollow. And as we mentioned before, we are giving away a brand new copy of this movie to one of our 2 viewers, probably mom or dad, right?
Yeah, and we're not playing favorites this time.
We're not playing favorites. All right. So the way to win this movie is to go down below and comment on this episode. If you do that by Friday, November 5th, we will take your name, put it into a raffle wheel, spin that wheel on camera, and post it. And whoever wins, we'll contact you that you are the winner, and we will send you out a free copy of this on Blu-ray.
Snail mail, but you'll get it eventually.
All right, so Dana, let me just read some of the stats of this movie, okay? So this is The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Came out October 2020, so exactly 1 year ago. Studio was IFO Films. Box office in North America was $185,000, 266 worldwide. We know why. COVID. You know, no theaters open, nobody going seeing movies. It was released on Blu-ray last December, and I actually bought this last December when it came out. I've been sitting on this for a year just for us to watch.
Did you have to go?
I did have to dust this thing off and bring it out. So now this was written and directed by Jim Cummings. Now I don't know that name. He had 17 directing credits and 16 acting credits. Most of them were like for film shorts. So nothing major that we would have seen them. But I wanted to know if you knew this. The writer and director was also the main star of this movie.
I was about to point that out, but you beat me to it.
Yeah. So I didn't know that until after the movie and researching this a little bit.
So it was a, what do they call that? You know, when you do everything, a project. I can't think of the name.
I don't either. But it's a do everything guy. So
I know. Jack of all trades.
Also starring in this is Ricky Lindholm. Now, when we watched this, we pointed her out immediately. She's the comedian that we know that's part of the duo Garfunkel and Oates. Mm-hmm. And then we also
Super funny, but great music.
We also saw Robert Forster, who we immediately know. He's in Jackie Brown. He's in Mulholland Drive. He was in Breaking Bad. And I actually remember him from 1979's The Black Hole. Did you ever see Disney's The Black Hole?
Oh, actually, I just rewatched that recently. That's a great movie.
That was Robert Forster. So
I forgot that he was in that.
So, what's this movie about? According to IMDb, this is the movie summary. Terror grips a small town as bodies are discovered after each full moon. Losing sleep, raising a teenage daughter, and caring for his ailing father, Officer Marshall, that sounds a little redundant, right? Officer Marshall struggles to remind himself there's no such things as werewolves. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you the trailer right now so you can see the trailer, and then we'll come back and do our review.
This is scary. It's new.
Same as the distance of the paw prints.
It's a wolf.
There is no such thing as werewolves.
How about we start acting like one?
All right, Dana, we are back from the trailer. What's our message for our lovely guest today?
All right, everybody, remember, we're doing spoilers. This is the time to shut us off and jump to this time in the far future where you're going to see our rating and grade of this movie. But we're going through a lot of the deets of the movie and specific details that we do not want you to know about until after you've seen the movie. So come back at this time.
Yep. Come back at this time and you will come right to our Cult Lords ratings. We'll rate it from 1 to 10. You'll at least get to see what we rate it, and then you can go watch it yourself. Come back, watch the spoiler review, see if you agree with everything we have to say, or if you really don't think you're going to watch this werewolf movie, stay on right now and watch the review with us. All right, this is your last warning.
Last warning, we're going in.
All right. So, Dana, this movie, the opening credits show a beautiful snowy mountainous range and ski resort. And we find ourselves in the ski resort town of Snow Hollow.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was absolutely so well shot from a visual standpoint. The cinematography and all the vistas that they're showing as they're sweeping through, obviously establishing the town. I got to give it to them because it was filmed in Kamas, Utah.
Kamas? They've set up shop in Utah?
Kamas, Utah.
Oh, Kamas. Okay.
Kamas, Utah. Right. And man, their tourist industry is going to take off because absolutely gorgeous area.
Yeah, and so one of the things we have to kind of just share with you is we did see this movie 3 nights ago now, right? And we watched it together here at your palace, and we
My lair.
your lair, and we watched it together. But when the movie was over, we became tight-lipped, and we've talked every day since this movie, but we have not shared anything about this movie with each other. We still don't know what each other's going to say or if we like it.
Don't talk.
Yeah, and we would start bringing something up, and he'd be like, shh, don't say a word. Keep it for the film. So we are now about to find out what we think. So, Dana, the opening shot was a head scratcher to me. You know, and what you see in the opening shot after the credits is a big breakfast sausage with eggs, and then somebody chopping that sausage in half. Now, I've seen this before. It's usually a metaphor to something in the scene or what's going on. But you and I we were scratching our heads like wondering what this had to do with the shot, right?
I know, because you see that and you're thinking immediately, somebody's going to get emasculated, or we're leading into a deli shot about something to do with the movie. And it's like, wait, it's just 2 people on a table
or we're
talking.
having a
We're getting the
conversation
sausages.
about appendages or something, and then there's a shot of that. We were talking about that for like 3 or 4 minutes into the movie. Like, what did that have to do with anything? So, but as that happens, I would love to ask Jim Cummings, the writer, director, and actor, what was the purpose of that shot? Maybe it's just to have us talking, right? So, in Act 1 of this movie, we get to meet our main character, who is Deputy Sheriff Officer John Marshall, played by Jim Cummings. His father is Robert Forster. He's an aging sheriff who's on his way out.
Heart problems.
Heart problems. He's on his way out. Then you have this like ragtag group of other deputies who they get a call that there's been a murder, right?
The most incompetent bunch.
Yes, and when they get there, it's a grisly scene. Even Robert Forster, who's a seasoned veteran, is gagging over this, right?
They didn't even want to show him.
Yeah.
They were holding them back.
Already people are thinking this is an animal. They're finding wolf hair. They're thinking no man can. There's a wolf print.
Big giant wolf print there.
Yeah,
right?
and it's the body is cut in a certain way. They think it had to be an animal. But our main character, Jim Cummings, Officer John Marshall, who's going through a divorce, raising a kid. He's an alcoholic who's recovering. He does not believe it's a werewolf or a wolf or an animal or anything like that. He believes it's a person.
But he seems to be the only one. For some strange reason,
yes,
everyone else is convinced it's a werewolf, a real live werewolf.
Already they think it's a werewolf. And it actually, it kind of encapsulates the next night. The very next night, because they talk about this being 2 murders in 2 days. There's a murder the next day in the same manner. Now, Dan, I wanted to say something about this because we were like going, what? So usually with certain kind of creature movies, there's rules, right? So in vampires, a rule is, that they're afraid of crosses. They can't go out in the sunlight. They sleep in their garlic, right? They don't cast a reflection in the mirror. Zombies, if they bite you, you're going to turn into a zombie. The only way to kill them is shoot them in the head. Now, what are some werewolf rules that we usually accept? If they
silver
bite
bullet.
you, only way to kill them is a silver bullet.
They only come out at a full moon. So in the first murder, they actually prominently show the full moon. It's in the paw.
Oh, yeah. And
reflected in the paw of the bloody werewolf paw.
So then there's a murder the next night, and they prominently show a full moon again.
So I looked that up.
Yes.
And that meant 30 days later.
But
totally confusing in the movie.
But
that's what that meant.
Then they made a mistake because the officers say there's been 2 murders in 2 days. Because we said,
But they didn't say consecutive days. I agree with you. It made no sense because there's like, wait, is somehow this is in a weird another space universe where it's full moon every single night?
Yeah, because then there's more murders always happening on full moons. So you're telling me this happened over months?
Yes.
That makes no freaking sense then, the way they filmed this.
It does in the sense that it makes why the town people turned on them what seemed to be so quickly, because it went the next day, the town people, are you incompetent guys? Why haven't you discovered the killer yet? And we're both like, It's been 2 days. It takes a little bit of time.
They should have explained that better, because first of all,
Right.
I'm telling you, there's a spot in there where the deputies say 2 murders in 2 days, and then we get to other murders, and you're like, every time there's a full moon, like
Right.
day after day after day.
So we were willing to suspend our disbelief, like,
We were,
okay,
yeah.
you know, maybe it's one of these odd allegories where it's constantly a full moon, and
Or
you know,
maybe
they did that for
maybe
whatever.
they're breaking the rules. Like, you know, occasionally you see a vampire movie where somebody pulls out the cross and the vampire laughs and grabs the cross, right?
Right.
They're breaking that kind of trope that you always are associated with. So maybe this werewolf does come out every night. You know what I mean?
So knowing that knowledge now, what looked to be a movie that took place over a week,
yeah, we were thinking it
suddenly
took
takes
over a
place
week.
over 6 months.
It had to be, yeah. It's yeah. You know, in like the post movie kind of writing our notes here, I was like, wait a second, how is that possible? Because it looked like it took place over about a week and a half, right? And
But then there was one scene where it was like a quarter moon, a couple of quarter moon scenes.
Yes.
And it was almost like symbolic, because if you go to the guy, remember when there was a specific killer, we'll talk about this a little bit later, when he's dead.
Yes.
It's a half moon over his RV. So that was like the first time they had broken the full moon all the way. So anyway, it's totally confusing.
So as this movie moves to Act 2, and now we're kind of getting into the new killings, right? So they pretty quickly show a full shot. I think it's on Murder 3, or maybe Murder 2. But Murder 3 or Murder 2. They show a full shot of this werewolf. And I have to say, that was pretty damn spectacular, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, you don't normally get to see a reveal that early, and it was a big dramatic shot where the werewolf all of a sudden stands up. But I mean, it was far enough away behind a car, and it was the woman that was the ski instructor, that it was like, whoa, they're really going to show this right now? I mean, it was like impressive.
As we were watching this movie, we were like, whoa! We were like excited, like, and this thing, it looked amazing, right? And he does come out for some other murders too, like people are trapped in their car and he's like, you know, shaking the car, and this werewolf is huge and scary looking, and it was pretty scary to see this werewolf.
I know, it was dramatic. We were both very pleased to actually, oh, this is different. They're showing the monster right ahead of time.
And meanwhile, after each one of these murders, all the deputies and even the townsfolk believe it's a werewolf. Our main character, John Marshall, it can't be a werewolf.
It cannot be.
There's no
You people
such
are all
thing as
idiots.
werewolves. It's got to be a person who's making this look like a wolf, right?
Right. And he's been digressing, you know, he's been degenerating over time as the movie has gone along, where, you know, we see him starting in AA and he's supposed to be recovered, but as the stress and all the people have been calling him incompetent, going after him, and more murders, you can see him becoming more and more, metaphorically, a werewolf. In the sense that it takes him over as a monster.
Well, and we made a comment, so as if you watch this movie, suddenly in about Act 2, going into Act 3, I said to Dane, I said, look at his canines of the sheriff. Don't they look extra large? Like, and we're like, I think they were doing this on purpose, because I think that they're trying to throw you off the scent of what's really going on and making you start to wonder, well, maybe Officer John Marshall is the werewolf. Whoa, is that going to be the M. Night Shyamalan twist?
I think it was a heavy hammer of symbolism trying to be forced at us, like, this guy's been degenerating to the point where he's become the monster of the movie.
And now, because he's fallen off the wagon and he's drinking, it's very plausible he can't remember where he is at night.
I know. So then we started thinking, well, maybe he is the werewolf. Or, you know, is it possible?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're engaged in this movie right now. We're talking, we're trying to speculate. So we go into Act 3, and the daughter of the sheriff sneaks out, which it's ridiculous. All these murders are going on in this small town, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to sneak out to see my boyfriend."
She's what, like 16?
She is right before she went to college.
Oh yeah.
So she's like
18.
She's like 17, 18. So, but she's going to sneak out. All these murders are going on to go see her boyfriend, while her dad's out trying to do a sting with the entire crew, the deputy
Right.
crew.
He's told them they're waiting for the wolf to show
They're
up. We're
waiting
out
for
in
the
this
wolf to
small
show
town.
up. Yep.
Do not go out.
Do not go out.
Instead, it's sexy time in the SUV with the boyfriend.
Yeah, so we've got a Friday the 13th moment with teenage sex scene
Mm-hmm.
going on in the car, and then the wolf shows up, right?
Which didn't make any sense whatsoever, because why would the wolf show up at that particular moment with the sheriff's daughter in the car?
Because that's how the writer put it.
Total manipulation of the storyline. Never mind the fact that the neighbors in the window can totally see the daughter in the car.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the most private space.
Yeah, they're
like,
they're having sex in the car, and they're looking out at the neighbor who's in the window on the phone going, and they're like, what's she trying to tell us as they're having sex?
What's happening here?
Right, there's a werewolf.
So somehow the wolf knows they're in the car in this remote part of the town.
So you know, here comes our sheriff, and you know, he shoots at the werewolf, and the werewolf makes off, and he saves his daughter. So he's, of course, you know, having issues with the daughter. And
super pissed because she went out and then finds out the boyfriend. There's all these little side stories that were going on in this movie. You know, normally in movies, the MC goes after an objective, and there was all these like other things going on, like when he goes to the boyfriend's house because the boyfriend basically just ditched his girlfriend.
Right.
He took off because he was scared. So the guy goes over there in a rage and beats the crap out of the boyfriend. Meanwhile, the mom bear sprays him in the face. And he's sitting there guzzling the milk in the face. It was almost like it was comical.
And then they went through like a funny musical montage of them interviewing all the people in the town, like asking them questions. Where were you? All this stuff. And they're gathering evidence from all these people. And I don't know if you realize this, but there was some important information in that you don't realize until later on, and I'll get to that in a second. So they're interviewing all these people, and you know, meanwhile they're showing, you know, and once again this is kind of like leading you to think one thing. They keep showing this one guy in town who's kind of a loser, and he's got a pet, you know, dog that looks like a wolf.
And he's got a wolf tattoo, and he's kind of like he's doing like crystal meth or I don't know what in his car.
So
in his RV.
he ends up overdosing, and this is the beginning of kind of Act 3. He overdoses on heroin. So, you know, they get the call, they go out, and then they find a body in his backyard.
I know,
like,
we saw that like burning a body in his yard. Well, he is pretty remotely isolated, but still super casual about it. I'm just setting this body on fire in my yard. Never mind the dog would have been like all over the smell.
So what happens is they bring in his body. They find the dog, who's a wolf-like dog. They find a body, and they immediately conclude they've got their killer.
They've got their wolf man.
Right. But you know, we know that this can't be the killer because...
way too easy.
Way too easy. A little bit too early in the movie to solve everything, right? But because of this, all the deputies, all the, you know, townspeople think they've got their man. And this, the main sheriff, John Marshall, he's like, all right, he accepts it, and he starts going around and returning the evidence.
Right. He feels bad, too, because he's back on the wagon.
Yeah.
You know, he's trying to go to AA again, and so he's just moping around, very, very dejected, going and returning evidence to different people that they collected it from during the investigation.
So, you know, he ends up at this house of somebody I can't remember what the evidence was that he was returning, but it's the local taxidermist, and very thin, slender, weird-looking guy. And
who made an appearance much earlier in the movie.
2 appearances. He was actually under questioning, and this is where the aha moment came after I watched the movie and I'm writing up my notes. In the questioning, when they got to him, he said, all right, I know it. I own a lot of properties around town. You know, what's wrong with that or something like that? Well, one of the properties was the one at the beginning, the Airbnb that had all the taxidermy.
Right. We were wondering, like, what is up with that couple? Because this is a couple where the woman got killed outside. Well, the guy, by the way, is taking a shower and, like, shaving his man parts. PJ is his name. But But that was the weirdest thing when he shows up when they're investigating that first murder, and
Yeah.
he's the one. What the hell, guys? I can't rent my place out anymore. You
Yes.
guys are just. And I'm like. Wouldn't that be the first person you look at?
Yeah.
Who owns a place, is a taxidermist,
Yeah.
and has the ability to do all these kind of like murders.
And is tall and lanky like
Right.
this werewolf
But
is.
they conveniently blocked him in all the shots with the audience. So
Yeah.
they basically were manipulating us to not think it was him because.
So as he's returning, the officer is returning this evidence to him. Guy invites him in, drinks for coffee.
Come on in for some coffee, but then disappears.
Well, he offers to put a little alcohol in his coffee.
Right.
So he
has
does.
it all conveniently right here behind him in the kitchen.
Yeah. And then he disappears, and then the officer starts piecing things together and realizes that it's him, right? And I think, does he call in something? And then the guy appears and stabs him, like in full costume except for the head?
No, what happens is that they come in, he's talking, but he didn't see the guy sit down. He disappeared, sit down, so you didn't get a full shot of his body.
Oh, he asked him to stand
And
up.
then he starts talking to him about his family and everything, and the guy says, yeah, I heard your daughter, something like that, got attacked.
Yeah.
So then the conversation goes on, and you see John Marshall all of a sudden, like,
The light bulb
goes
off.
like, like he knows something just came up. And then he's like, oh, I got to take off. So then he walks out the front door. Then he calls.
Yeah.
Then he goes back in and knocks again and says, hey, can I come in? I left something. And then the guy locks the door really quick. And of course, that's the cat's out of the bag. So then he bursts through the window with the garbage can and then like starts going around the house with a gun, really, high suspense. And then the killer reveals his full height and stabs him.
You're right. And
in the stomach.
then he runs out, and I remember him specifically being in full costume that he's probably stitched together out of a bunch of wolves, except for the wolf mask. So he's in full costume except for the wolf mask, and he runs off.
Goes, ooh,
Yeah.
looks back at the guy who's on the floor with his giant knife wound,
But somehow he struggles with him outside, gets
he
the gun.
chases him through the woods.
Outside he
Right.
struggles with him for the gun, and he gets the gun, and he shoots him dead.
No, and then the fireworks go off.
Oh,
Remember the big
to Old Lang?
fireworks?
That's right.
And I'm
They're
like,
pla-
what the? That's the
they're-
biggest coincidence
That's
ever.
right. They're playing fireworks, and they're playing the song "Old Lang Syne." You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, remember that? We were
So he's
like,
running through the woods, and then it's dark because then he gets attacked. And then all of a sudden the fireworks go on. They're playing that, and then Ricky Lindholm, deputy, shows up and fires off just when the guy's about to kill the sheriff. She shoots him once, kind of knocks him out of the way, and then the guy who's got a huge knife wound in his chest, has already taken all this beating, gets up and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right in the killer's head. It takes him that long to knock him down.
yeah,
And so then, as he previously had promised to one of the early victims of the the wolf, he said, "Take him down till you see the hole in the ground." Well,
Yeah.
he did it.
Yep, he did, and that's what the anger was in shooting him that many times in the head. So
Right.
and then basically
Then the wrap up.
the wrap
Girls
up.
going to college.
I didn't see a purpose in that wrap up. I mean, so
Other
at
than
the
the
end,
last phrase, when the
yeah.
because the dad gives her a bunch of condoms.
Bunch of
and
condoms,
says,
right.
Hey, be safe. And she's like, oh, he trusts me now. I'm assuming that's whatever. And then the dad's walking out.
Although
and
she made some sort of weird look to the drawer where she found the condoms. Like there might have been something else in that drawer, but
it was weird. There was
I actually went back and watched that ending like on my laptop just to see like, did I miss something here?
Uh-huh.
And I didn't. It was just a weird ending. So
And then the guy at the end, to end the entire movie and prove that the guy has gotten himself out of his anger issues and alcoholism, as he's walking out, two college boys are like, "Ooh, there's new women in the dorm, fresh meat."
Yeah.
And the guy stops
yeah,
and then keeps walking,
and he keeps walking.
and that's the end of the movie.
End scene, end credits, end
Right.
movie. So recommendations. Dean, this type of movie sucks to me because you and I were very, very engaged in the first two acts, right?
Yeah.
We were loving it. They call this a horror comedy, so we were laughing. We were freaking out at the shots of the werewolf. It was so good. The cinematography was great. Some of the acting was a little hokey, but
Right. The
still
dialogue
overall it was great.
Yeah, the dialogue there were so many funny comments, and we were laughing out loud with some of the retorts, especially the back and forth between the sheriff and his deputies.
But then when Act 3 comes, this starts unraveling because they're trying to get you to believe maybe the sheriff is the werewolf, maybe somebody else
the big teeth.
is a killer. Is there a werewolf? You don't know.
Right.
And then at the end, they bring in this one guy who you almost say, well, of course it's him. Right?
It's like, the MC goes very, the one of the tenets of screenwriting is the MC has to drive the action. And so you get to the end, and we talked about this, where he's just walking around all puppy dog, returning the evidence, and on the last house he's returning, which of course means it's later in the night, full moon's out or whatever. He goes to this house, knocks on the door, and it's the guy who turns out to be the killer.
Well, and of course we learned that full moons don't even matter because it's not a werewolf, right? So they try to go for this gotcha ending, but it falls very, very flat to me. So
and never mind the fact that Robert Forster died.
Robert Forster.
During the movie
he
or
died.
after?
Well, in the movie as a character, he dies from a heart attack.
Like at the beginning.
But then after this movie, he actually dies in real life.
Okay.
So
they had the ability to not have him die on screen. It was almost like it made no.
Well, you know what? And
whatsoever.
I don't even know. Maybe
he
he
was
died
too sick or
while they were
something,
filming
so they had to
this, and then
manipulate?
that's because you know what? His exit to this movie is very, very
Right. I mean, they
abrupt.
set him up as this major character, and then there's no payoff.
Yeah, I would love to go back and see if he died during the movie or if it was after the movie because like he dies abruptly. You don't even. It's off
in a hospital,
He's
and
in a
he just-
hospital,
No.
but the next day he comes and the hospital bed is empty,
Right.
and then they never really show. They have
I kind of thought
funeral.
he's back out doing something.
Yeah.
He's back on the road.
Yeah,
you know?
it was kind of
They
strange.
have
So
a funeral, but
So Dane, let me ask you this: if you had written this script, how would you have done this differently?
Well, as I mentioned, the ending, that's where the whole movie fell apart. And it was almost like they were trying to manipulate us to be a surprise.
Right.
And the reality is it would have been actually much cooler, if they hadn't made this a werewolf supernatural movie, and it really was a serial killer that you knew up front was doing all of this and terrorizing the town, because then you'd be in the know, and it would give you a heightened level of suspense. Like, if that guy showed up at the house, and you knew that was the killer, wouldn't you have been like, oh, what's he going to do? It's the guy
Right.
showing up, and he doesn't
Right.
know. But because you didn't even know it was him, it was just like, oh, he's just sitting down at the kitchen having
Right.
a little bit of coffee, and then he comes in. And at that point, you're still like, I didn't even know that was the killer.
Yeah.
When he walks outside and he calls it in and everything. But a much better ending, and this is where we go back to the Robert Forster thing, is you got this perfect setup of the alcoholic sheriff and his dad, who's the head sheriff, and they're fighting and there's disagreement all the time. Why don't they, after the guy gets himself back together, the father and the son go for the one last haul. He finally gives in to his dad and lets him take an active part in the case. The two of them then come up with a scheme because they've already figured it out. They put two and two together. Then the dad goes to the killer's place under the guise of being, hey, I'm just here, friendly guy. I'm in civilian clothes. I'm not. And then he's really there because his son, meanwhile, is outside, and they do a whole setup. The dad gets stabbed to the table or something, and his son bursts in, and then maybe there's a race through the woods or something, but then the main character is actively then killing his objective and achieving it.
Yeah.
It hasn't been brought in by Ricky Lindholm. There isn't some random fireworks that conveniently light up the woods so everyone, including the audience, can see really well on camera. That would have been so much payoff because all those loose threads would have been tied together.
Yeah. You know what? I thought of something that would have been awesome if they wanted to stay in the supernatural realm. Okay. So imagine this. His dad's having the heart issues. He's in the hospital. The next day he goes to there and his bed is empty and his daughter's there and everybody's there and they're like, he's like, where's my dad? And they're like, we don't know. And what if his dad was a werewolf?
Yeah, that would have been good too.
You wouldn't have seen that coming, right?
No, you wouldn't have seen it.
You wouldn't have seen
but
that
would have
coming.
been like destroying the whole push of the entire movie about alcoholism and anger management and PTSD.
I like your version better, but
because him and his dad doing one last score, and then the dad dies, but at least he got to die doing something.
Yes, because you know what? That was it. His dad was so concerned about how people perceived him as the sheriff in this movie, and so like if he went out, did one last thing, heroic thing, and lay down his life to help the town and help his son, and his son, did this, then it would have been awesome.
Much more satisfying. And they had that Ricky Lindholm character. It was like she almost served no purpose except at the very end to show up.
Well, she had
the glancing blow that brought the killer down.
She had a little bit of comic relief throughout.
Yeah, right.
But,
well, they put her in there for, she can act really well and be like serious, but then kind of funny at the same time.
So Dana, I think it's time for us to give our scores, but before we do, let me tell you how Rotten Tomatoes scored this. All right. So if you go to the site Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave this movie an 89% score fresh. In fact, if you look at the Blu-ray, it's got the certified fresh sticker from Rotten Tomatoes on the Blu-ray. So the critics loved this movie. The audience score, 66%. Not as much. They didn't love it.
Critics always like the art house aspect of movies where there's this subtext that you all of a sudden reveal in the end that, oh wait,
but haven't the critics seen this formula before? I mean, come on. And so the audience still a positive rating above a 50%, but at a 66%. So I think now it's time for us, and I don't know how you scored this. I mean, I'm starting to get a sense. We have not
seen each other's score.
I'm starting to get a sense of where you're going by how we've talked about this movie. But I'd love to see your score. I'm going to reveal my score. Scale of 1 to 10 on the Cult Lord rating scale. So why don't you grab it? So let's do our Cult Lord rating from a scale of 1 to 10. What did we think? And Dana, ring the bell.
Come on back for the rating.
All those who have skipped the spoiler review can now come back in just to see our rating from a scale of 1 to 10. So, for our ratings,
dramatic flourish.
We have not seen this. I kind of have a feeling where you're going to go, but we will see. So, on the count of 3, we will do our reveal. 1, 2, 3.
What'd you do? 6.3.
6. So very, very close. Very, very close.
And this is without talking ahead of time on any of this.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't even look at Fresh Tomatoes, so that was interesting that we're even like in line with the audience.
We are very much in line with the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. And for me, Dane, this score could have been higher.
Right.
If things had gone a little differently in this movie, this would have been much higher.
Yeah, I agree. So come back after you've watched the movie, see what we've said, see what you agree, disagree with. We'd love to see all the comments.
Yeah, we want to, if you've seen this movie, please comment below. We'd love to hear what you rate this movie. If you haven't seen the movie yet, go watch this movie, come back, watch our spoiler review, and then let us know if your ratings match up with ours. And that is our first episode. We want to thank all of you who came and watched. It is our first episode. We will get better, we promise.
But again, we need your help. Please subscribe and like this episode. We love comments. We'll respond as fast as we can, but every little bit helps on all the social media channels too.
Yep, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're there. So, thanks again, Cult Friends.
Thank you, Cult Friends.
And we will see you next time.
We are the
Hello, everybody. This is Dane.
This is JR.
And we're the
Cult Lords.
We're coming to you from our cult compound. We're going to do... Hey, everybody. This is Dane.
This is JR.
And we're the Cult Lords. We're coming to you from our cult compound deep in the jungles of South America. I recommend eating the food, but don't drink the Kool-Aid. Wait, shit.
Just go.